And I know I started late, so if anyone has to leave early, please don't hesitate. I know you're all so busy, but I'd like to begin every session with a prayer for Israel. And this is the prayer that I was blessed to write and put a melody to, and it was arranged and it's being sung by Noah Solomon, and it's a 3-minute melody, and my hope is that this will be picked up and perhaps people can find it of some meaning. No better way to begin than with that kind of prayer. So Shuli will, God willing, Shuli, who's the best of the best, to play it.
ריבונו של עולם, אנא אנא אנא, אל תעזבנו. ריבונו של עולם, אנא אנא אנא, עזור לנו לברך עמנו בניצחון, להחזיר חיילינו לשלום, לשחרר חטופינו למשפחותיהם, להשיב המפונים לבתיהם, לרפא פצועינו בשלמות, לקבור חללינו בעדינות, לנחם אבלינו ברגישות. ענה ענה ענה, ריבונו של עולם, ענה ענה ענה, אל תשכחנו. ריבונו של עולם, ענה ענה ענה, עזור לנו להפוך פירוד לאיחוד, מרירות לרעות, ריחוד לקירוב, שנאה לאהבה, צער לרווחה, אפלה לאורה, מתקפה בגאולה, שתה בגלה ובזמן קריב. איי 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 איי, אליי 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 אליי, איי אליי אליי אליי, אליי אליי אליי,
Just in the prayer that as Israel is about ready to begin a new attempt to once and for all defeat Hamas, that I know that with God's help we'll be victorious, but by definition, not every soldier who goes in comes out. So God should be with all of the soldiers and they all come home safely. So I want to spend now about the hours a bit later, but maybe 15, 20 minutes talking about a sentence from the portions that we're reading this week from Kedoshim. Lance had mentioned the Ahavta l'reacha kamocha, but I want to take a different sentence. And Lance, I owe it to you. So next week, God willing, we'll do love thy neighbor as thyself.
God willing.
But this week, I wanted to discuss the unique understanding that Judaism has of older age. And the salient sentence in the Torah that surely God willing will kindly flash on the screen comes from Sefer Vayikra, Perek Yutet Pasuk Lamed Bet, chapter 19, sentence 32. And this is what the sentence says. I'll read it out to you. Mipnei seva takum. There it is. You shall rise before the aged. Vehodarta pnei zokain. And show deference to the old. V'oreta me'elohecha. And you shall fear your God. Ani Adonai, I am the Lord. V'pnei seva takum, v'adarta pnei zokain, v'yoreta me'elohecha, ani Adonai. And my goal in the next few moments is to present a view of older age, of which I am part of now, very much a part of, and to try to show how Judaism has an approach that is certainly, I think, contrary to the norm in the Western world. Maybe it's more similar to what would be happening in some of the Eastern cultures, but certainly different than what we find here in America. I think a lot of what I'm about ready to say has been introduced or is part of the culture of Israel. And so the first thing that I want to say is that Judaism, the Torah, the rabbinic tradition, honors the elderly. And that's not the norm in many places in society. And there is a magnificent midrash, which is must reading. And the midrash is very important because in rabbinic times, it reflects the rabbinic approach to whatever they're talking about. And this is from Breshit Rabbah Samachay Tet, from Genesis Rabbah 65:9. And it's actually a midrash that I quote in this book that I wrote that was published in 2018, Journey to Open Orthodoxy. And here's what the midrash says. If Shuri may find it, we'll put it up. Otherwise, I'll just read it. Rabbi Judah ben Simon said, this is really quite something. Here's what he says. Amar Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon, Avraham tavazikna, which means Abraham requested old age. Now this is quite something, because you would think that that's not something that Abraham would request, that anyone would request. As we get older, we're always looking, most people are looking to be younger. I think I first heard this from Rabbi Beryl Wine. He used to always say that there are three stages to life. There is young, middle age, and you're looking good. Young, middle age, and you're looking good. And most people don't look towards older years and see it as a positive. Here it's saying that Abraham requested older age. Omar lefanav, Abraham said before the Lord, Ribon ha'olamim, master of the universe. If we have it in English, maybe we'll do it in English. It's a bit easier. Thank you, Shuli. Rabbi Judah Bar Simon said, Abraham demanded aging. He said before him, notice him is capitalized, uppercase, because it refers to God, master of the universe, a man and his son, and it could have been a woman and her daughter or mixed. A man and his son enter a place, and no one knows which of them to honor. Now, this is the language of the Midrash. The Midrash here is on a sentence in Genesis, which we don't have to put up on the screen, but I'll quote it. It says, Va'avraham zaken baba yamid. Abraham grew old. And this is the first time that the word zaken, old, refers in the Torah. And what this Midrash says, it's a strange Midrash. And whenever you read a Midrash, it's not that what the Midrash says happened, but that's not what the Midrash is stressing. What a Midrash stresses is something that it could say that's not real, but there's a message, there's a teaching from the Midrash. So this Midrash understands that text in the following way, that while people in Genesis died, and in the beginning they were living, whatever that means, 1,000 years, 900 years, that will be for another time, exactly how we deal with those long ages. But as old as people were, they never aged. That is to say, let's say in our society, when a person dies at 100, let's say, or 110, people are living beyond 100. At 100, they look like they looked at 20. They look no difference. And so what the Midrash says is that Abraham was upset with that and says, Master of the universe, a man and his son enter a place, and no one knows which of them to honor. No one knows who to honor, because in Abraham's case, Abraham and Isaac looked the same age, even though Abraham was 100 years older. And then the text says, because you adorn him with aging, a person knows whom to honor. Now, actually, that word adorn in Hebrew, it's atara. And I think a better translation, because you crown him with aging, a person knows whom to honor. In other words, God, make me older, so give me the crown of aging, so that when I walk in with Isaac, they'll know I'm older and know to honor me. The Holy One, blessed be he, said to him, as you live, you have demanded a good thing, and it will begin with you. From the beginning of the book until that point, aging is not written, just what I had previously said. When Abraham stood, he granted him aging. Abraham was old. Now this is, when you read this Midrash, it's extraordinary. It's talking about aging, not something that God imposed upon us, but something that Abraham asked. Now, of course, one can argue, well, I'm not asking for it. I'm just saying that there is this wing in Judaism that sees aging as positive. And it calls aging the atara, it calls it a crown. And this is, I believe, very contrary to the norm in Western civilization, where the elderly are often not honored. They're not given the credit that they deserve of life experiences. And all of this I'm putting out there, and please, if you have a pen and paper, jot down what you're feeling about this. The second point that I want to make about this also sets Judaism apart from what is Western culture. And here is something very personal. I believe that in Western culture, relative to aging, there is a policy, I'm going to use a hard word, of segregation, of separating the elderly from other folks, from those who are younger. And Judaism, I believe, emphasizes the message of integration. And here I want to point you to a beautiful Gemara in Baba Kama, where we're going back again to our patriarch, to Abraham. And look at what the Gemara says. The Gemara says that Abraham walked around with a kind of necklace. I walk around with a necklace of our grandchildren who are in the army. Abraham walked around with a necklace, and on one side was the image of an older person, and on the other side was the image of a younger person. What was the coin of Abraham, our patriarch? An older man and an older woman on the one side, and the young man and a young woman on the other side. And I write in Open Orthodoxy, for me, this means that Abraham, the father of Am Yisrael, carried a message that people of all ages have much to contribute and much to learn from each other. Wisdom of life experience together with youthful energy are both necessary to forge a better destiny for Israel and for the world. In a similar spirit, old and young together, for example, in prayer, can lift the prayer experience to extraordinary heights. Here I'm actually referring to something that I had written before the paragraphs I just read to you, and that is that in many synagogues, and I don't mean to say anything bad, they have services just for young people. And in my whole rabbinate, I very much oppose that. I was a young rabbi in those days. It would have been the easiest thing to begin a young couple service, and being younger, maybe attracting young couples, but I resisted that very much. It may not have been good to attracting membership because it's not the norm, but I was insisting that older and younger be together. And this is something, this is very out of the box, and I'd love to get your feeling about this. But from my perspective, older people should be integrated actually into our educational system. I would go so far as to say, even into elementary school education or high school education, not just for the younger to visit an old age home or to go to a synagogue where there's a golden age program, as beautiful and as important as those programs may be, but for seniors to participate in the learning with younger people. Now, this is obviously, it's so different. I think parents of children may push back on that very, very strongly. But I'm putting out there this radical idea that when, for example, students are on campus and they join a Hillel or they join a Chabad, for 4 years of some of the most important years of their lives, they're in an educational setting. They don't see an older person. And I think it would be important for older people to be invited to the campus if that can be arranged. And not just for a program here and there, but it should be something which is a program, and it should be a process which is integrated in the deep way. And so that's a second thought I wanted to share with you. Our first thought is, just to summarize, that Judaism looks at older people to be honored. That was always a centerpiece of the Bayit. And under Reb Stephen, of course, it is still a centerpiece of the Bayit. That older people are venerated, they're honored. And the second is integration. I love the idea that when you come into a service at the Bayit, we're going to see there are many, many strollers, thank God, in the tens and tens in that lobby. But when you come in, younger people are sitting near older folks near younger folks, and that's healthy. That's healthy in an educational setting as well. I wish there would be people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s studying with us every Tuesday morning. When I talk about that, they say, well, sometimes they're out there working. Okay, but that would be the dream, that in that educational setting, in that policy of integration, rather than setting the elderly apart, that's the better way. And the third and final counterintuitive idea is one of my favorite writings written, actually it was said in an address by the great Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel at an aging conference during the Kennedy years in the White House in 1961. And this is something remarkable, and Heschel was, of course, the genius in counterintuitive thought. Here's what he says. He says, may I suggest, and this, of course, shows how dated this is, he writes and says that man's potential, and if there was anyone who was a feminist before feminism, it was Heschel, but still yet he calls his works Man in Search of God and so on. And so he writes and says, may I suggest that woman's and man's potential for change and growth is much greater than we are willing to admit, and that old age be regarded not as the age of stagnation, but as the age of opportunities for inner growth. When one reaches an older age, that doesn't mean that I'm a has-been. No, it means that this is a wonderful, wonderful time for me to explore opportunities that I never had previously had. The years of old age may enable us to attain, if you could point to the place, Shli, I'd be so appreciative. The years of old age may enable us to attain the high values we have failed to sense, the insights we have missed, the wisdom we have ignored. Now look at these next 5 words. They are indeed formative years. You can't get more contrary to the norm than saying that formative years normally associated with the youngest of children, that applies to the zakens, the zakena. They are indeed formative years, rich in possibilities to unlearn the follies of a lifetime, to see through inbred self-deceptions, to deepen understanding and compassion, to widen the horizon of honesty, to refine the sense of fairness. I just love this. It reminds me of, there's a sentence in the Torah that says that when Sarah died, she was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. And the rabbis ask, why the usage of the word years so often? Why doesn't it just say that she was 127 years old? Why 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years? So the rabbis say, well, it adds years to tell us that at 100 years, she was as beautiful as when she was 20. And at 20, she was as innocent or pure as when she was 7. not old enough to do the simple things that we often unfortunately do when we're older. And I'm wondering about that. And Rashi is Rashi, you know that he's my favorite. But if I had a chance, I would say to Rashi, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it says 100 years and 20 years and 7 years, not that at a particular age that we know, we don't control the age that we are. We just reach that age. The question is, how do we receive those age? Are we going to reject that age? And no, I don't think it's a good thing at 100 to dress like you're 20 and at 20 to act like you're 7. It says 100 years and 20 years and 7 years to indicate at 100 years, Sarah lived as 100 years old, and she embraced it fully, the Heschel idea. Those were times where she was able at that age to make a contribution in ways she couldn't do previously. And at 20 years, she lived as a 20-year-old. Not that at 100 she wanted to be 20, she wanted to be 7. Blessed is the person who can say when we reach a certain age, I feel blessed that I'm at this age. We don't control that anyway, but I feel blessed and I want to live as an 80-year-old. I want to embrace it. Here I'm obviously talking to myself and letting you listen. I'm not saying that this is easy stuff to do, easier said than done. But this is the mahalach. This is the approach of Judaism. In those 3 ways, I think the Jewish approach is very different. Number one, the giving of honor to people when they become older. Number 2, insisting that the elderly not be isolated, but fully integrated into society. Number 3, to recognize that these can be our most formative years. Actually, there's a certain point here where I write the following. Let's see if I can find this here. I'd love to get your impressions of this. The honor given to the elderly plays another role. It also reminds us that they can and still make significant contributions to society. This being so, it is important to remind the elderly themselves of this truth. Otherwise, too often, older people get caught up in a vicious cycle. If treated as infirm, they can subsequently feel incapacitated and cease believing they can still help themselves, let alone that they still have something to offer. Now that I've reached a senior age, I too experience this phenomena. I now pay the half fare offered seniors riding subways and buses. While such is perhaps intended to give us honor, the effect can also be negative. If we pay half fare, we can begin to believe we only half contribute to society. Just to close, the sentence finishes with the words, the whole sentence in Leviticus reads, honor the elderly, v'yoresa me'elohecha, and you should fear the Lord, ani Adonai. And the question which the rabbis ask is, why is there a mention of God's name at the end of this sentence? What does God have to do with honoring the elderly? And the great Rashi says the following. He says, the commandment to show respect to the elderly is an easy one to violate. One can simply pretend that he did not notice. In other words, I can close my eyes if I'm younger and pretend I don't see the elderly. I don't see the needs of the elderly. Therefore, the Torah cautions us to revere God. He knows our true intentions. This fear of God is invoked when a mitzvah depends on the intentions within someone's heart. I often feel, and frankly, it's something I feel as well. I mean, I've been around for a long time in Jewish leadership, but sometimes when I'm sitting now with a larger group, an older person can feel invisible. That's what it means. Don't close your eyes and make believe you don't see the elderly. It's so important in one of the points that I made of integration that the elderly be noticed. That word invisible is a term which I think is often used by people as we become older, and we wonder, are we of any value? And so Rashi says the reason it says Ani Adonai, I am the Lord, is God says, I see everything. You may say you don't see the elderly. You may see them, but you act as if they're not there. You don't see them. God says, I know what's in your heart. I know whether you're giving, whether you're integrating the elderly or not. But my father had another beautiful interpretation. He would say, why does the sentence of honoring the elderly end with God saying, I am the Lord? Listen to this. This is worth the price of admission. It doesn't get better than this. So Abba would say, God says, look here, who is the oldest entity in the world? God says, I'm the oldest entity. No one's older than I am. Therefore, I take it very personally if you don't honor the elderly, very personally. And so it concludes with, Ani Adonai, I am the Lord. How did I say it in this piece? We concluded this piece. We would all do well to consider the section of the Torah in which we are commanded to honor the elderly. You shall rise before the aged. Fear your God, I am the Lord. Why are these seemingly unrelated concepts that we must honor the elderly and that God is the Lord placed in juxtaposition? In his later years, my father suggested that God is telling us here that since he is the oldest in the universe, he is particularly concerned about those who share this divine quality and about the way they are treated. I'll stop here and open this up. It's just 11 o'clock, so we have a few more moments to spend with each other. And
yes, I think it's wonderful. I agree with everything you say, and it's revolutionary. Our society is divided into Gen whatever, or Gen X. I don't even follow. I don't even know what they're talking about when they talk about these different categories of age. That the journalists always say Gen Z, and so I think it's wonderful that we should be inclusive. And
Well,
I love old age. I'm very happy.
I
There's
may
nobody to tell me no.
can I say something? I This is all very well and good speaking generally, but I think you also, when you're honoring old age, you have to be selective too. I mean, there are old age people who are doing very dangerous things, and the idea is to decipher what's good and what's bad, and just generally honoring is not the only word, because if you're going to honor people, you can't just select, oh, I'm going to honor old age. What about honoring people where if you're not old age, you're sitting in a group and everybody's speaking one language and you don't understand what's going on? That's not honoring, and that's the same thing as not paying attention to a person who is there and feels like an outsider. And that would be the same feeling that an older person would feel. So you can't just stick to honor, quote, old age, because there are many ramifications of this. And a general statement, I think, is not the way to go. I mean, despite the general nice feeling. am I making myself understood?
And I want to so much understand, Estelle, what you're saying. And are you saying that limiting honor to older people, that's what doesn't make sense?
Honoring, you've got to honor old people is all very well and good, but you've
Yes,
got to be selective in your honor. You can't honor a person even though he's old, if he's mean or nasty uh, or 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 anti anything that you believe in. You can't
I
just say,
see.
well, I honor you because you're elderly and therefore I give you my respect.
Right.
If even if
Now
you're
I
younger,
understand it. Now I
I
understand
think
this.
that's the general statement is too general. You've
Yeah.
got to be specific in a lot of thoughts.
No, I think you're press as usual, Estelle. I appreciate it, and I think you're right that these ideas require embellishment, and it's in the details that I think the details are very critical. I do want you to know that the Talmud asks your question in Kiddushin, and it asks your exact question: what happens if an older person doesn't know anything, or an older person is inappropriate? What the Talmud says is that, and it's one view, that by dint of having lived years in this world and having experienced life, that is enough of a reason to give honor to a person who is older. That person has years. And look, Estelle, there are always exceptions to the rule, but I really feel that because there's exceptions to the rule doesn't mean that the rule is wrong. There's always exceptions to a rule, and you have correctly pointed to the exceptions. But on the whole, I think the rule holds that.
No, I'm sorry. I think you have to give honor to other people, not specifically the elderly
I
or the
see.
infirm or the
Let
people who are
somebody else talk.
what?
Okay. No, that's
Let
okay.
somebody else talk, please.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead, Debbie. It's your fault.
Okay.
Take the mic. I just
Um,
expressed my opinion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I do. Um, I think Ellen, your hand is raised.
I
The,
see.
And then
Oh,
Toby.
I
okay,
know
wait.
that
Can I make an order just so everyone knows who's coming? So I see Ellen, I see Sue, I see Lance, I see Ruth, and I see Bev. Can I just write that down before we
And
go?
Toba too.
yeah.
Oh,
Toba.
I'm sorry. I didn't see.
And I'd like to do
Okay,
afterwards
let's
too.
start with Ellen and then Sue, Ruth.
Um,
Who else did I say? Bev,
Tova,
Tova, Lance. Anyone that I missed?
Yes, I'd like
Ted,
to say
Judy? Okay. Ellen.
um, I know a lot of you don't read the New York Times, but
Oy, oy,
I
today's
oy,
New
do.
oy, 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 oy.
but today's New York Times in the science section had
Right.
a really interesting article, and so it's about the way we treat old people, and they called it elder speak, and how in nursing homes and a lot of people who interact with the elderly um, speak about them, sweetie, honey,
I hate that.
um, or they do this, it's time to take our bath. Well, they're not taking a bath with you. And they did studies in old age homes in the Midwest and found that when caregivers learn to speak to the, even with dementia, to speak to the elderly the same way they would have spoken to them when they were 40, um, that a lot of the aggression that dementia brings on calmed down, that people were more satisfied with their surroundings, or that the elder, and so, and nobody is saying that those people, the caregivers, were trying to be insulting Actually, they were probably thinking that they were coming at it from a good place, a caring place. But that's what we've done. We've made elderly people into others, into the other, and not treated them the way they would have been treated or spoken to when they were 40 and 50.
Appreciate that very much, Ellen.
Um,
Thank you.
so Sue is next.
Okay, I was so impressed with what you said about opportunities arising for the elderly, that this is a time not just for reflection on the past, but looking forward to what you can do, for how you feel, how you can be. And to me, this is so relevant, because I'm reaching a point where I'm saying I'm looking around, I'm looking at myself, I'm looking at my family, and I want to gain, I want to move on and move out. And I want to ask you too, you did some, I think it was from, I forget who you mentioned, who had all this material. And I would like if you could share some of the writings.
Heschel?
Heschel, yes. If you
Yes.
could arrange to share some of those writings, because it is so important, and it like says, yes, that I agree. That's what I'm feeling.
I'm going to try to do that. So, Julie, maybe we can search for his complete address at that conference. So maybe we can do that. But yeah, no,
I will see if
especially
it's available. I'll see if I can find it.
The way you framed it is an interesting framing, that as we grow older, are we only looking back? That's the way I think you said it, Sue. Or can we look forward too?
Right.
If
It's
we're only
looking
looking
forward,
back,
not
we're in
just
trouble.
back.
Yeah.
And this is so important.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're just old and you're giving up and that's it. But this is looking forward to not only being with people, but doing what you can and
Yeah.
being alive.
Yeah. I mean, in a certain sense, it's, I'm hearing an intersection between what you're saying, Sue, and what Ellen just said. That, talk to me like I'm a mensch. Don't talk, Okay, who else wanted to?
Next is Ruth.
Thank you, Sue.
Ruth, you're muted. Ruth, can you find the unmute? Let me see if I can. Did that help you to unmute? Did it send you a little notice? There you go.
Okay, so I definitely agree with what Sue and Ellen said. But, I think some of this begins at home, because how does the family react and relate to the older people in their family? Sometimes, thank God this is not in my family, but sometimes the older person or the grandparent is kind of put aside. They're not included. They're kind of, okay, well, he's old or whatever. So I think a lot of it has to do with how young people grow up with relationship to older people. I think that has a lot to do with how they will see older people later on in life. I think that is something. But I also feel that sometimes older people themselves are excluding themselves from things.
Yes.
Like, oh, just the younger people are doing that. But you could also be involved. Because when
Right.
you get to know people and get involved, they will include you.
Right.
So I think there are different ways of looking at this.
Right. No, I really, what I enjoy most about the Tuesday mornings, truly, these are not just words, but from the heart, is just listening to all of you. And I appreciate that, Ruth. I think that's so true.
Bev. Bev and Ted.
Ted.
Oh, I appreciate actually every point that everybody made, including the rabbi. That's a joke. Um, uh, uh, Especially, I uh, took the point that Estelle made at the earlier part of the opening up the discussion. And not all old people deserve to be honored. Uh, but I offer a compromise point of view, and not to contradict the holy texts, I would have worded it differently. Do not dishonor older people.
Wow. That's beautiful.
That's a good way, Ted. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ted,
sweetheart.
Ted, do you feel my hug?
I would like to
Do you
say,
feel my hug?
I would like to say
That's
that
beautiful. In other words, don't do it. It's really, that's my Ted.
it's I'd
Thank
like
you.
to say that he's going to be 95 next Shabbat.
He's
Oh,
still a chicken.
Wow.
And
He's
A
still a
young
chicken. You have to
Yoda.
rush to catch up.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Many,
you.
many more. Many
with
more, Ted.
with all
Oh,
he
boy.
had in his head before and more. And that we are fortunate that we are honored by our children and grandchildren.
Right.
And
Yes.
great
But some of
grandchildren.
it is they don't talk about disabilities that old age have. It's you would like to do more. You would like to go and be integrated, but you just can't make it because of because you're just not strong enough and well enough, and you don't. You know, there
Mhm.
has to be some adaptation for the for old people. They can't really come out at night, come out in bad weather, you know, do things that they didn't even think about 40
Mhm.
years ago. So
Mhm.
it, I think discussing it and opening up the discussion is always good.
Right.
That makes people alert to the fact that there is an issue. But it's Ruth is right. Sometimes we exclude ourselves.
Yeah, that's a very powerful thought. I think, yeah, yeah, it's both correct that sometimes we just can't, just as there are younger people who can't. Because you're young doesn't mean,
That's what I'm saying. We've got
yeah,
to have respect
right,
for all ages.
right. But I did find, I must, and I don't say this to impress, but just to make a point, that when we started to buy it back in the 70s, a centerpiece was to try to send a message that even if you think you can't, maybe you can. I remember when we started the programs for our special friends, and at that time, 50 years ago, people didn't get it. We advanced, I think, in our understanding of these matters. And there were people who started to come who hadn't been out of their homes in a long time, just to feel welcome. And that really has been a centerpiece. Thank God, Rev Stephen is taking it to new levels, but it was always what the Bayit was about.
We lost Tova, it looks like. So then I would say Lance and then Judy, and we do have 2 more requests if we have time.
Okay.
Okay. I belong to the Jewish community of Dorot. Dorot's intergenerational Zoom programs, in which adults 65 plus and teens come together to participate in activities leading to the discovery of new and shared perspectives. My favorite program is with SAR, in which I teach teens Tanakh and Talmud, and teens teach me Tanakh and Talmud. I'll put the link in the chat.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall for that, Lance.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to the website.
Okay, that's beautiful.
Cool.
And it's magnificent. It's the highlight of my, no, with all due respect to this class and 8 hours I love,
it's fine,
but
Lance.
it really becomes the highlight of my week.
Of course.
It's not just that they are. I mean, they have tremendous number of programs, and the seniors are treated with just as much respect by the teens, and as the seniors, the teens respect the seniors.
That's great. Yeah.
Judy's next.
Okay, thank you. I have a short comment and a question. The short comment regards you're talking, Rav Avi, about the strength of the older person to be optimistic and to go forward. Well, part of that, if you look at the word shanim, it means years. The person with the most years has gone through more changes and more growth than anybody else, because shanim comes from the word shinoi, to change.
Right.
So that's one comment. But I do want
Beautiful.
to ask a question. Can you please translate the word Ms. Kane?
Ms. Kane.
Yeah, look, Miss Kane,
Unfortunate.
That's the way it's understood in
Also has there's a
contemporary
Kane in the Ms.
I think that translation, Estelle, is when you say in Israel, whom is Ken, yeah, like Nebuch, unfortunate. But it is interesting that the root of that word is Zakein. You can't get away from that. Does that speak to, and this is unfortunate, does that speak to a connection between older and unfortunate? I never thought of that.
No.
That's a word that maybe needs a little help. Needs a lot of tweaking.
Judy, that was great. I never thought of that. That's terrific.
Kane needs.
Well, Judy is a master of
Wow.
language, of Hebrew, I've often heard that from Judy. Ruby, what do you think, Ruby?
Wait, Rabbi, we have 2 more hands. I'm just trying to go in
Ruby.
order. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sarit's hand and then Arnie's hand.
Hello?
Hi, is that Sarit? Sarit, do we hear you? I'm sorry, we can't hear you. So we're gonna come back around. Let's go to Arnie, and then we'll try to come back to Sarit if her connection is better.
Okay, Arnie.
Yeah.
Oh, Arnie, you got to unmute. There you go.
I just had a thought while we're talking about this, that old age is both an absolute, but it's also relative. So we're all talking about it as somebody who's reached many years of age. But somebody who's 11 and has a 15-year-old sister thinks that 15-year-old sister is old. I remember when, back a long time ago, when I was in college, people would say, never trust anybody over 30.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And so every age there's,
Wow.
God willing, another age that you're gonna look at
Wow.
as older.
Wow.
Yes,
For that matter,
yes,
younger.
yes, yes.
So that kind of plays tricks, I think, with what we're all saying.
Beautiful.
You're
I
only
can't wait.
confirming what I've been pushing. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
want to
Ellen.
try to go back to Sarit, who I think is newer on the class, and see if we can hear her. Otherwise, Sarit, we'll try to hear you next week.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm hiding in a stairwell of a medical building because I took my friend for an MRI and I've already been hushed in the hallway.
Oh.
So thank you for Bob Isaac for inviting me. This is really a wonderful class. So I'd like to make just one point, just asking this question. We used to say, or we still say in Judaism, on someone's birthday, ad mea ve'esrim, which is till 120.
Mm.
Now, a popular expression in Israel is a little different, and I think it's
Yeah.
open to interpretation. Instead of saying ad mea ve'esrim, they say ad mea ke esrim,
Okay.
which means till 100 as if you were 20.
I've heard that. Yes.
And I think it doesn't mean that we should dress or act like a 20-year-old. I believe it means with the energy, the curiosity, the health, and the optimism of a 20-year-old.
Mm,
So I would like to see it that way. Do
mm.
you
I
so do you
It's
think
true.
that's
understand.
still honoring? It's
That
not,
no, that's true. I hear that all the time. Yes, that's great, Sarit.
And the
Sarit,
next point I was
where
going to
you?
make, and I would have to look it up, the word someone mentioned about zaken and misken, one being unfortunate and one being elderly. I will check it out. However, I suspect the zaken is with the letter kuf and misken is with a kaf. If that is the case, then those two words are not the same.
Oh, I would love to. That's interesting. Uh-huh. I
She's a
would love to
bright
hear.
lady.
Thank you. Sarit, where are you talking from?
I'm talking from North Potomac, Maryland,
Oh, I see.
which is a suburb of DC, but I did grow up in New York in Washington Heights.
I see. And do you know Rabbi Nisanantine or Rabbi Uri Topolovsky? They're rabbis from our rabbinical school
Yeah,
down there.
Topolovsky, I know that name.
Yeah, he's
I
a
don't know
very.
him personally, but I know that name.
Thank you. I'm gonna. Wow, I appreciate you're saying
Thank you.
that.
This is a wonderful class. And again, thank you, Bob Isaac, for inviting me to it. And next time, I hope to be visible and not hiding in a stairwell.
Wait,
I'm
so
going to
you're
call
saying,
Bob and thank him. Wow. That's
Sarit,
great.
you're saying that Miss Ken is
Thank
Zion.
you.
You're
I don't
saying that
know. It's
Zion
I'm
Rothmund?
suspecting that Miss Ken may be with the letter Kaf.
Wow.
And
Okay,
then Zaken is definitely with a kuf,
for
which
sure.
makes them unrelated. One of the
Uh-huh.
beauties of Hebrew is the root system and how words
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
related.
Right.
So I doubt that I mean, again, I may be wrong,
but to relate zaken with
I
misken,
hope you're right.
it seems against the whole philosophy of what
Yeah.
we in Judaism
Right,
believe.
right. I see.
So I'll check it out when I'm off the call.
Okay,
But thank you so much. It's
okay.
really enlightening.
You know what?
And I
just
do-
looked it up, and it actually looks like it's a samech, mem samech kaf nun.
It is a
Poor,
kaf.
unfortunate, or miserable. So it's a kaf, but it's also a samech, not a zayin.
Yes, exactly. Both letters, right.
That's what it looks like.
It is
Oh, it's a
definitely it. I could see it written now.
Yeah.
One
it's a
is
different
misken
word.
samik kaf. The other is zakan, which would be zayin kuf.
Ooh.
So it's not related.
Well, what is samach chaf?
Boy, I
What
was
does
No,
it
no.
say?
It just means,
Samech
yes, the
kaf.
samich doesn't mean anything. The word is misken, spelled mem samich kaf. Thank you, Shuli. That's right.
Yeah.
So now,
So one is a samich, which is more the S sound in English, and one is zaken, which is the Z
thank you.
sound in
Thank you
English,
so much.
and it's a kuf. So we're happy to see that in Hebrew, they don't assume because we're zaken, we are also misken.
No, first I appreciate that. Julie, can you look up? I'm holding people too long. The word sochein, samach, vav, chaf, nun.
That's like a merchant.
That's
An agent. An agent.
An agent.
Right. He was a sochein.
Yeah, that's not related.
Well, it could be. I mean, it could be related to misken. It's the same. Same.
Yeah, if he was a
word.
miserable agent.
Right.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you so much, Sarit. I so appreciate that.
Bevakasha.
Now, just one more word. I want to hear from Ruby. Ruby, what do you think?
I think that when you're older, there's always some kind of physical limitation or ache. But I think personally, I have never let that interfere or try not to let that interfere with all the activities that I'm interested in. So
I'm with you, Ruby.
I don't focus on the fact that I'm old. I focus on what I'm interested in. I focus on the people I like to be with. And that's my main drive.
I really wanted to hear your thoughts because I just marvel at the way you do things, Ruby. You're so active and doing and growing and quite remarkable.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's so good to see all of you and learn from you. And I look forward to next week. I've learned so much. My goodness. We have a rewrite of the Torah from my good friend Ted, whom I love. I love that. Don't dishonor the elderly. I finally have learned that the word is not zaken, misken, but miskain. Thank you. I learned be careful about, not every elderly should be honored. Yeah, it's I learned a lot from everybody. So,
Wait, hold on.
So appreciate it. Just have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Sending love.